Hey guys, how's it going? Srey here. Today I want to talk about Valla. Valla is a ranged DPS and is quite often referred to as the best ranged DPS hero in the game. So for some of you that might come as a surprise, and to others that'll be very obvious. So let's cover why Valla is so good. Valla is just a really well-rounded ranged DPS overall. She has good burst damage, she has good sustain damage, she has very good mobility, she has very good wave clear, and she complements basically any team comp. So any team comp in the game, pretty much for the most part, is good with Valla. Um, she also does really good damage, and she has a lot of different types of damage, so that makes her good in any type of comp. So you don't need to, if you have Valla, you don't really need to worry about damage. Even if your comp consists of 2 tanks and 2 supports and Valla, you'll still probably be good on damage. So as long as you have Ball on your team, you don't have to worry about DPS, as long as, of course, the Valla player is good. So, of course, there is a difference between Hero League, Quick Match, and competitive play, but that difference doesn't extend far enough as to where Valla isn't good in kind of more uncoordinated play. So, Valla is, of course, in competitive, really good with Ariel, really good generation for Ariel. She's really good with Tassadar, specifically because well, you'll run Tassadar in double support comps, and Tassadar has the level 4 talent, which gives Valla 30% lifesteal and auto attacks. And since Valla relies so heavily on auto attacks, the 30% lifesteal is very significant. Really good with Zarya, and it's just really good with any kind of double support comp in general. Because of Valla, essentially no hero in the game is able to trade with Valla because Valla has such high damage output. So if you can keep Valla alive and keep her healthy, then she can consistently out trade enemies. In Hero League or Quick Match, you're not going to have, most of the time, you won't have double support, and you probably won't have a Tassadar, and you might not even have support, but she's still very solid overall. She still does most things better than any other ranged hero, and the only limitation to Valla is pretty much your own skill, because although she's quite easy to play, to just pick up, she's actually quite difficult to master, and stutter stepping on Valla or attack move, or whatever you want to call it, basically moving in between auto attacks is very important. So let's go over her kit very quickly. Her Q is Hungering Arrow, and she fires an arrow that deals damage, and then it seeks additional targets, and it can hit a target multiple times. So let's just show that really quickly. Basically, Q, it hits the first enemy. It has to hit, otherwise it disappears. Let's say that I hit a hero here. It's going to hit to that hero, and these additional hits are random as far as I know. Her W is multi-shot and basically just does damage in a cone. This is her main wave clear tool. Her E is Vault, and actually before we talk about E, let's talk about her passive. Her passive is Hatred. Basic attacks grant a stack of Hatred up to 10, and each stack of Hatred increases her basic attack damage by 8% and her movement speed by 1%. So when you have 10 stacks, you have 80% additional damage and 10% movement speed. So 80% additional auto attack damage is a lot of damage. So what that means is that you really need to make sure that you keep your stacks up of hatred on Valla. And what does that mean? For the most part, that just means auto attacking things constantly and always attacking things. And especially before you go into a fight, you want to make sure that are you have your hatred built up as much as you can before you enter a fight. So it's only 6 second uptime. That's not actually very long, and you also gain, of course, 10% movement speed. So let's build up 10 stacks here. You can see that her attack damage is significantly higher, and she also is a little bit quicker. So that helps stutter stepping and movement in between attacks. So of course, this is how you want to play Valla. You want to attack in between every auto, and the way that I'm doing it is you can see that my cursor is switching from red to green, and that's because I'm hitting A in between and left clicking. And that just attacks the nearest target. So if I'm near to these ogres, you'll see that when I get to the other target over here, it'll attack the ogres automatically. And it's going to attack the closest target. Now, if there's a bunch of minions, say this mercenary camp, I'm going to have to manually click in between. And that is a little bit more difficult. And it's definitely a skill you have to learn. So auto attacking or pressing A to attack or attack move is a lot easier than clicking the target manually. But you should learn both skills. So her E vault, you dash to the target area, and you also deal additional damage based on how many stacks of hatred you have. So if you have 10 stacks of hatred, you're going to do your next auto attack will deal an additional 60% of your base attack damage, which is a noticeable increase in damage. So let's go over her talents. Her talents are at level 1 are Monster Hunter, Caltrops, and Hot Pursuit. So Hot Pursuit is by and large the standard, and it's one of the critical talents for Valla. So Hot Pursuit does a few things. It increases your movement speed to 20%, up from 10%. So that's a substantially. So if we look here, build the stacks up. Once we reach, you only gain the movement speed 20% after you hit 10 stacks. So at 9 stacks, you'll have 9% movement speed, and at 10 stacks, you'll have 20% movement speed. You can see how fast I'm running here. And then with this talent, running a little bit faster. And that's actually quite helpful. And more noticeably, you also, maybe not more noticeably, but you also gain 4 mana per second while you have 10 stacks. And you should always be at 10 stacks with Valla, especially while you're laning or clearing waves. So this basically gives you 4 mana regen per second. And you can see that I currently only have 4.86, so you're almost doubling her mana regen. Of course, this is level 20. This is level 1 talent, so at level 1, you have a significant mana increase. And this basically gives you unlimited mana, because you're going to constantly be regenerating mana. And as long as you're not spamming your spells off of cooldown, you'll regen mana. So this makes Valla, if you have a healer, you never have to back. So if you have some like an Arlo healer with you, you basically have unlimited health and unlimited mana on Valla. So Caltrops, you can drop 3 Caltrops when vaulting that do damage. And once you complete the quest, which you spend 180 seconds, it doesn't have to be, it can be staggered, so you don't have to have 180 seconds at one time. It's 3 minutes. And once you complete that quest, the vault cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds, so from 10 to 5. So this is just, Hot Pursuit is just really, really strong. Just take my word for it that if once you start taking this talent, you'll never ever want to go back. Monster Hunter, I would only ever even consider taking this talent on Battlefield of Eternity because it lets you burn the Immortal really quickly. And there's not much to attack in between to build up your stacks unless you're in a team fight. Hot Pursuit is really, really strong though, especially once you get really good with Valla in terms of her movement and her stutter stepping. You can really use the extra 10% movement speed, so 20% total to your advantage. At level 4, we have Puncturing Arrow, Punishment, and Creed of the Hunter. So 2 of these are quests, and the first one here is you basically have to hit 20 heroes with the initial hit of Hungering Arrow, and that's going to increase the damage, and you get an additional bounce. So it actually increases the damage by a noticeable amount and gives you another hit afterwards. But this is actually quite hard to stack, so you have to hit 20 heroes head on, and that's going to take quite a long time to actually stack up. You're not going to gain the benefit of this for quite late into the game. And same with Creed of the Hunter. This actually takes quite a long time. So you're going to gain 10% attack speed, which is nice, but not game breaking or anything close to that. And after 100 basic attacks on heroes, you get an additional 2% basic attack damage per stack. So instead of being 8%, you gain 10%. So that's nice, but again, not even game breaking once you've actually completed this talent. So both of these talents take a very long time to stack, and they're not that strong. So Punishment increases the hatred damage. Each stack of hatred increases the damage of multi-shot by 4%, so you can increase it up to 40%. And since this is AoE, this is going to do damage in a large area, and it also helps with wave clear. So this is the standard talent at level 4. At level 7, there's Arsenal, Death Dealer, and Repeating Arrow. So Arsenal fires. You also fire a grenade, which deals additional damage, and if enemy heroes are hit by the grenade, it reduces the cooldown of multi-shot by 2 seconds. So as far as I know, a hero cannot be hit by more than 1 grenade. So if there are 3 heroes, you can potentially hit 3 heroes with grenades and reduce the cooldown of Arsenal by 6 seconds, possibly even more, because I'm fairly certain that the grenades are also a area of effect. Let's look at the grenades right now. So those extra grenades there you can see shooting out will also reduce the cooldown of Arsenal, or of multi-shot, sorry. So not only do you have increased damage on Arsenal, so you can see that it does 362, and if you're hitting an enemy with a grenade, 263, that's a huge damage increase. You're also significantly reducing the cooldown. It's going to be by at least 2 seconds, up to half the cooldown or more, and that is a lot of value. So some people take Death Dealer, which increases the bonus attack damage from 6% to 14%, and also reduces the mana cost and cooldown of Vault if you get the last killing blow on a target. So you're never really going to get the last killing blow on a hero with Vault. You'll probably get it on minions. So it's going to increase your attack damage from the 60% max to 140%, and that's a pretty big increase. But again, you're gaining like less than an auto attack. So you're basically getting an extra auto attack worth of damage when you vault, and I don't think that it's nearly comparable to Arsenal. So some people take this standard, but I still think the Arsenal is far better. Repeating arrow reduces the cooldown of hungering arrow when vault is used, and I think that it makes it so that like a lot of time you want to say vault. You're only using vault for the utility of it. So even though it does damage here, you're only using vault for movement and mobility. You're not using it to gain 60% damage of an auto attack and trying to burst down a target. You're using it to get within range of a target or to peel away from a target. So the condition of you reduce the cooldown of Hungering Arrow, you don't want to be using Vault for the purpose of damage, which is basically what you're using it for a lot of the time. And for that reason, I mean that's one reason that I don't like Repeating Arrow. I just feel like Arsenal also just has way more value overall than Repeating Arrow. So level 10 we have Strafe and Rain of Vengeance. So Strafe is perfectly fine. It attacks enemies near you for 132 damage per hit and prioritizes heroes over minions. You're also able to move and use Vault while strafing and it lasts 4 seconds. So let's have a look at it here. This is a single target. You can see that if I aggro this camp, it'll target all of these heroes, or it'll hit multiple targets. So it's really good AoE damage. Basically, the way you want to use Strafe is, I'll toggle cooldowns here. You want to be auto-attacking a target, right? And then you want to use all of your cooldowns, and then you use Strafe. So you want to make sure that you blow all of your cooldowns before you Strafe, because they'll go on cooldown while you're strafing, and you can maximize your damage in that way. So let's look at the other option. The other option is Rain of Vengeance, and I prefer this. I used to only go Strafe, but now I strictly go Rain of Vengeance. And this is a lot better in coordinated play, but it's still really good in Hero League, and I still take it every game in Hero League over Strafe. So Strafe can be interrupted, and it basically just does damage. You're also more effective. It's more effective just to auto attack a single target than to Strafe. So Strafe is going to give you more AoE damage, but you have to remember that when you're strafing, you're not auto attacking or able to use any of your abilities. So I feel like you can actually get more value when you're, especially you do get more value on a single target when you're just auto attacking than if you were to strafe. So if you're attacking, say there's an Arthas attacking you or something, and he's right in front of you, and you're kiting him, you just auto attack. You wouldn't use strafe to do that because the only advantage to strafe on a single target is the range of strafe. So strafe has a longer range than auto attacks do. So Rain of Vengeance gives you 2 charges, and they each have a 50-second cooldown, and it basically just launches a wave that does damage and stuns enemies in the area for 0.5 seconds. So that is Rain of Vengeance. And it actually has a bit of a delay. So you can see if I cast it at the max range here, I have a bit of a delay. So you can see that it comes down in a line, and there's a bit of a delay in the end. So sometimes that might make it a little bit difficult to hit. So the reason I like Rain of Vengeance is I find that the utility is really strong. So having that stun is really good, and I find that it just does more damage. So let's look at how much damage that Strafe actually does to a single target. So Strafe is going to do about like 1400 damage over 4 seconds. So you have to calculate how much damage you'd get from auto attacks in that duration, because Rain of Vengeance does not interrupt your auto attacks. So you'd be about 1400 damage minus however many auto attacks you're going to get, and then I find that Rain of Vengeance just does more damage, and it's just more useful because not only does it do near the same amount of damage as Strafe, especially with 2 charges, it also stuns targets, and it lets you set up really well. So say that you have a Mirror on your team and he gets a Stormbolt, and you use Rain of Vengeance, and you can combo Rain of Vengeance, and just that 0.5 second stun is really good to help combo with your allies. And in addition to that, it also is really good peel because of the stun, and you can interrupt things. So if Gul'dan is for some reason has Rain of Destruction, you can use Rain of Vengeance to interrupt that, or if Tychus is using Overkill, or any kind of effect where a hero is channeling or using an ability, you can use Rain of Vengeance to interrupt it. Okay, so level 13 we have Siphoning Arrow, Tempered by Discipline and Gloom. Siphoning Arrow is just bad, so you heal for 75% of the damage done by Hungering Arrow. Just the cooldown on Hungry Arrow is too long at 10 seconds, so you just don't gain that much effectiveness from it. So you have Tempered by Discipline and you have Gloom. So Gloom is really, really strong, and what it does is it gives you you passively reduce all ability damage by 20%, which is just a strong passive in itself. But you also can activate Gloom to consume all of your hatred stacks, and you reduce your ability damage taken by an additional um, 3% per hatred stack, so up to 30%. So in total, you can reduce ability damage you take by 50%, and it lasts for 5 seconds. And that's just very, very, very strong. So being able to passively reduce ability damage is good, and then you can also significantly reduce your ability damage as well. So Tempered by Discipline is also quite good, but I prefer Tempered by Discipline when I have double healer, and I prefer Gloom when I don't have double healer. So Tempered by Discipline will give you basically lifesteal at 10 stacks of hatred, and this is really good with Tassadar because you basically have 55% lifesteal on a hero that relies on auto attacks and is ranged, so you're gonna get a ton of value from that. But the problem with this is that it's very sustained healing, of course. Not only do you need 10 stacks, but you also have to be constantly auto attacking to get value out of this. So it's kind of like if you're getting some healing, you're gonna get a lot more because you can stay in the fight. Whereas if you can't get any healing, you're not gonna be able to get if you already have low health, right? If you have 20% health, you can't go into the fight to auto attack to get the sustain from Tempered by Discipline. Whereas Gloom will just prevent you from getting low in the first place because it prevents a lot of burst. I would still take Gloom if the enemy team has even if you have like a really good support, you have double support. Um, I'd still take Gloom if the enemy team has a lot of burst, so they have like a KT, Tyrande, Kerrigan, uh, maybe even a Gul'dan or Li Ming or something. Then Gloom is better. So 16, my choice here might surprise you. So you have Frost Shot, Seething Hatred, and Manticore. I actually go Seething Hatred every game I play Valla. Um, pretty much every game. If the enemy team has a lot of tanks, let's say like for some reason they have 3 tanks, I'd go Manticore. But other than that, I think that Seething Hatred is better, especially with one of these, whatever, if you take Tempered by Discipline or Gloom. So what Seething Hatred does is basic attacks now grant 2 stacks of hatred, and the time it takes for hatred to expire is increased by 2, so from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. So this makes it so that it's very, very easy to keep your stacks up on Valla for hatred. And remember that majority of your damage comes from well, not the majority, but a lot of your damage comes from hatred, up to 80%. So if you go into a fight with 4 stacks versus if you go into a fight with 8 stacks, and you have to remember that because it also increases the duration of hatred by 2 seconds, that means that you could be going to a fight with 10 stacks instead of going to a fight with 0 stacks. So this is very, very useful, and it also works well with Gloom, obviously, because you can get your hatred stacks a lot quicker once if you activate Gloom. And I feel like this gives you way more damage than the potential damage from Frost Shot or Manticore. So Frost Shot increases the range of multi-shot by 20% and also slows by 1.5 seconds. So I don't like Frost Shot for 2 reasons. The first reason is it increases the range by 20%. Okay, so here's the range of multi-shot, right? So if we go over here, it's about the same range as your Q, approximately. And if I want to auto attack here, look at my auto attack range. Look how short my auto attack range is compared to multi-shot. So Valla is a hero that relies on auto attacking to do the vast majority of her damage, or at least more than half of her damage. So if you're already out of range from auto attacking by using multi-shot, having an additional 20% range is going to just make you be even further away from the target. And if you have to be near the target to attack anyway, increasing the range on multi-shot isn't going to help anything. The other part is it slows heroes by actually it slows all enemies by 25% for 1.5 seconds. So 25% isn't even a lot, and 1.5 seconds is very short for that kind of slow. So you could also already have slows in your team, which make this ineffective as well. So I feel like you don't get any value from going Frost Shot. I never take Frost Shot. I feel like it used to be really good. It used to slow heroes significantly. I think it was like 40% for a significant amount of time. It was like a 13 talent before they reworked Valla. But now I don't like Frost Shot, and I think that you're much better off going Seething Hatred. So Manticore makes it so that every third basic attack against the same target deals an additional 5% of their max health as damage. So this is good on Valla for 2 reasons. But it's similar to Giant Killer. So Giant Killer is your auto attacks do 1.5% of the target's max health. So after 3 auto attacks, Giant Killer would do 4.5% and Valla would do 5%. So there's 2 differences, a few differences. One, Giant Killer is a 13 talent, obviously. Two, it's the third basic attack, and it's the same target on Valla, so you can't switch targets. You have to make sure you consistently attack the same target to get value from it. And it's going to do, Mana Core will give you a little bit more damage. Valla also has a pretty fast attack speed at 1.67, so Giant Killer or percentage or the Mana Core or whatever is better on Valla than most heroes because of the rate of her attack. And you can also get increased attack speed through talents. Of course, I don't recommend those, but you could do that. So I go Seething Hatred though because again I feel like you just get more damage. And even it doesn't say, hey, you do 5% of the target's health or something, or you slow when you can kite. It doesn't say that it gives damage, but you will notice a significant amount of damage, especially if you're a newer Valla player. This is also really good. But even if you're a veteran Valla player, I still think Seething Hatred is really good, especially because of the Gloom, or Tempered by Discipline. Level 20, we have Death Siphon, which increases the damage of Strafe and also gives you 25% lifesteal. We have Storm of Vengeance, which reduces the cooldown of Rain of Vengeance by 5 seconds every time you attack. Rancor, which increases the attack speed of Valla by 2% per hatred stack, so up to 20%. And then when you're at 10 stacks, you gain an additional 30%, so you gain a total of 50% attack speed when at max attack. And then you have Firefly Quiver, which increases the basic attack range by 40%. So they're actually all pretty good. I'd say the worst one's probably Death Siphon, but it's not even that bad. So if you go Strafe and you don't have a healer in your game, I honestly consider going Death Siphon. That's if you don't have a healer. If you do have a healer, I wouldn't consider it. Storm of Vengeance also isn't too bad, considering how fast Valla's attack speed is. Reducing cooldown of Rain of Vengeance is quite good, but you have to remember, in a team fight, you're never going to be resetting the cooldown of Rain of Vengeance. Like, you're not going to be getting 3 Rain of Vengeances in a team fight, most likely. It'd be very unlikely if you did, and that's probably not going to win the fight for you anyway. So this is just, the problem with this is that most level 20 fights are like big fights, right? Where like one team will get 5-man wiped, or like it'll be like a 4-for-3 or something. And there's no skirmishes after. So if this was an early game talent, it'd be really good because you constantly skirmish in between. But because it's level 20 late game, this isn't as good. I actually don't really like this talent that much. So the other two options here are Rancor or Firefly Quiver. So Firefly Quiver is standard on Valla, at level 20, and you can see that the range increase here is quite long. So Valla has quite long attack speed now, and being able to attack from this far on Valla is very useful. You can see that it basically matches, it gets a lot closer to her multi-shot and Q range now. So you can use all your abilities at max range, and this is just, if you're safe to do damage, and you can effectively just do more damage. So you want to get Firefly Quiver. Let's talk about Rancor first. So Rancor you want to get if you have a lot of frontline, if you have a lot of peel, if you feel very safe on Valla, like you're not really being focused too hard, and you're able to just attack heroes, and able to do damage, because this will noticeably increase your damage, like significantly. Firefly Quiver is good if you're being focused a lot and the enemy team is really trying to kill you and you feel like you just need the extra distance in fights. I would recommend going Firefly Quiver most games, but Rancor is a good option as well. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about Valla. Again, I think that she is the best DPS hero in the game, for range DPS at least, and she fits into any comp. And if you haven't tried her, she's pretty cheap at the store, and I really recommend that you try her. She has a lot of transferable skills to other heroes, so you can, if you want to work on abilities and hitting skill shots, I mean, you can work on hitting your Hungering Arrow. If she has a lot of mobility, remember that 20% movement speed basically makes her like a Lunara. She's just like a better Lunara, in terms of she has better sustained damage and she hits harder. She also has burst and a lot more other uses. And you can learn stutter stepping on Valla. Valla is probably the best hero to learn to stutter step on or attack move. And I think she's just always a really good hero. She's just really well rounded and a good choice. And if you haven't tried Valla, if you haven't picked her up yet, give her a try and let me know how it goes. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching.